Hello. What's the biggest problem in the world? Wars? Politics? The economy? Nope. I'll tell you what it really is. It's when your partner leaves a dirty coffee mug right next to the sink, instead of inside the sink. That's when humanity is on the edge of collapse. Okay, jokes aside. The truth is, the biggest problem of our world is conflict. We fight on every level. Countries against countries, politicians against politicians, neighbors against neighbors. But the conflicts that really shape our daily lives are much closer than that. They happen at home, between people who actually love each other. And here's the funny thing. Many couples like to proudly say, "We never fight." And honestly, I don't buy it. Either they're lying to themselves, or one of them is silently planning an escape. Because the truth is, conflicts are unavoidable. Why? Because we're different. Different habits, different moods, different ways of doing the dishes. Add stress from work, money issues, family drama, and boom, you've got the perfect recipe for an argument. But here's the real problem. It's not that we argue. Arguments by themselves aren't dangerous. The problem is how we argue. Most of the time, conflicts don't stay on the surface. They don't remain about that coffee mug, or the laundry, or forgetting to text back. Within minutes, they transform into something way more personal. Suddenly, it's not about the mug anymore. It's about, "You never listen. You always do this. You don't even care about me." Sound familiar? This is where small sparks turn into wildfires. A minor disagreement escalates into a full-blown emotional war. And instead of solving the issue, both people fight for victory. Who's right? Who's louder? Who lands the final punchline? And the irony? Nobody actually wins. That's why today, I want to talk about how to fight the right way. Yes, you heard me correctly. Fighting isn't always a bad thing. In fact, if you know how to do it, arguments can actually bring people closer together. The key is learning how to keep a cold head even in the middle of a heated moment. With that being said, let's break this topic down.
So, why do simple arguments escalate so fast? Why does "you forgot to buy bread" suddenly turn into "you don't love me anymore"? It's because when we argue, we're rarely just talking about the thing in front of us. We're dragging along the entire emotional backpack we've been carrying for weeks, months, sometimes even years. And in that backpack, resentments, stress, old arguments we thought were over but never really healed. Think about it. Nobody actually loses their mind over a single dirty sock on the floor. It's not about the sock. It's about what the sock represents. To one partner, it means, "You don't respect my effort to keep this place clean." To the other partner, it means, "Why are you always nagging me? It's just a sock." And suddenly, it's not two people talking about laundry. It's two people defending their identity, their values, their sense of respect. And once the fight jumps from the sock to the self, you're not discussing chores anymore. You're fighting for survival. This is why arguments escalate so fast. Because in our heads, it's no longer a debate about something small. It becomes a threat. You're not hearing me. You don't appreciate me. You don't care about me. And once those phrases come out, the argument is no longer about solving the problem. It's about winning. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who can throw the sharpest insult before slamming the door? Here's the irony. Many of us treat conflicts like a courtroom drama. One person is the prosecutor, the other is the defendant, and the goal is to prove who is guilty. But in relationships, when one person wins, the relationship itself usually loses. So now we see the real problem. Most fights aren't about socks, dishes, or who forgot to take out the trash. They're about respect, identity, and love. That's why things spiral so fast. But here's the thing. If arguments are basically emotional minefields, then the only way to walk through them without blowing everything up is to keep your head cool. And that's where the next part comes in.
Let's be honest, keeping calm during an argument sounds a lot easier than it actually is. It's like someone yelling, "Relax," when you're stressed. That never helps. So how do you actually stay calm in the middle of a heated fight? The key is learning to separate the moment from the meaning. Here's what I mean. When your partner says, "You never listen to me," your brain hears, "You're a terrible person. You're a failure. You're the worst partner in the world." But that's not what they said. What they said was, "Right now, in this specific moment, I feel unheard." See the difference? One interpretation feels like a total attack on your character. The other is just feedback about a single situation. If you can pause for even a few seconds, breathe, and ask yourself, am I reacting to what they actually said or to what my insecurities are making it mean? You've already taken the argument off DEFCON 1 and into something manageable. Another trick is to think of conflict like driving a car. If you slam the gas every time someone cuts you off, you'll crash. But if you slow down, check your mirrors, and wait for the right moment, you'll get home safe. Same with arguments. Speed kills, patience saves. And here's a practical, slightly funny tip. Next time you're in a fight, imagine the whole scene being narrated by David Attenborough. Here we observe the human male in his natural habitat, raising his voice as a defense mechanism. It's hard to stay furious when you're picturing yourself as part of a wildlife documentary. The point is, keeping a cold head isn't about denying your feelings. It's about making sure your emotions don't hijack the whole conversation. Because the calmer you stay, the faster you both can actually solve the problem, instead of just trying to win the fight. So, if keeping a cool head stops the fight from blowing up, what happens next? Well, here's the surprising part. Arguments aren't actually bad. In fact, they can be one of the healthiest parts of a relationship if you know how to handle them.
Think about it. If two people never argue, either one of them is a saint or someone is hiding their true feelings. And if feelings are constantly bottled up, they don't just disappear. They come back later, like emotional debt with really high interest. A well-managed argument is like cleaning out the pipes. It gets rid of the pressure before something bursts. Here's the twist most people miss. Healthy conflict doesn't destroy love, it strengthens trust. Because every time you fight and then manage to resolve it, you prove to each other, we can disagree and still stay together. We can hurt each other and still repair the damage. We can face tension and not run away. That's powerful. That's what separates fragile relationships from strong ones. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a bridge. A brand new bridge looks perfect on the outside. No cracks, no scratches, but you don't know if it can survive a storm because it's never been tested. Now imagine another bridge. It has scratches, repaired cracks, patched steel. It's been through dozens of storms, earthquakes, heavy traffic. Which bridge do you trust more? The second one, because it's proven. Same with relationships. Couples who argue, fall apart for a night, and then rebuild, they're like that second bridge. Tested, reliable. But, and here's the crucial part, not all fights are healthy. If every argument is about winning, then nobody really wins. But if the goal of an argument is understanding, then even a heated fight can become an investment in the relationship. So the next time you catch yourself mid-fight, ask, am I trying to beat them or am I trying to understand them? That one question can completely change the outcome. And let's be honest, sometimes the silliest fights end up bringing people closer. You argue about which way the toilet paper roll should hang, but in the end, you're both laughing because you realize it's not about toilet paper, it's about feeling heard. Arguments aren't a sign of a bad relationship. Silence is. Because silence means someone gave up. So don't fear conflict. Learn to use it. Because when handled with care, it doesn't break your bond. It forges it. So now we know arguments aren't the enemy. But here's the million-dollar question. How do you fight right? Because let's be honest, most of us learned to argue the wrong way. We shout, we throw guilt like grenades, we drag old history into the battlefield. No wonder it feels like war. But what if I told you there are a few simple rules that can turn any fight from a destructive explosion into a constructive conversation?
Let's break it down. Here are the golden rules of fighting fair. Rules that keep the argument from turning into emotional DEFCON 1. 1. Attack the problem, not the person. Sounds simple, but it's the hardest. Saying, "You never listened to me," is an attack. Saying, "I feel unheard when you're on your phone while I talk," is pointing at the problem. One makes the other person defensive. The other opens the door for change. 2. Ban the always and never trap. You always forget. You never care. The second you use those words, your partner's brain stops listening and starts building a defense case. Instead, be specific. Yesterday, when you forgot to call, I felt unimportant. That's something they can actually respond to. 3. Set the 20-minute rule. Most arguments don't need to last 2 hours. If you feel like you're just going in circles, pause. Take 20 minutes, cool down, then come back. Science shows that once our heart rate spikes above a certain point, our brain basically shuts down rational thinking. You're not problem-solving anymore. You're just boxing. 4. No kitchen sink arguments. You know this one. You start with, "Why didn't you do the dishes?" And 5 minutes later, you're bringing up that time in 2019 when they forgot your birthday. That's not problem-solving. That's emotional archaeology. Stick to one issue at a time. 5. Listen like you're wrong. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. Flip that. When your partner talks, repeat what you heard. So, you're saying you felt ignored when I stayed late at work, right? It may feel awkward at first, but trust me, nothing de-escalates a fight faster than the other person realizing you actually heard them. 6. Humor as a pressure valve. Sometimes the fastest way to defuse a fight is a well-timed joke. Not sarcasm, not mockery, but gentle humor. Like when you're mid-argument and one of you says, "Wow, we're really about to break up over pizza toppings, huh?" And then you both laugh because you realize how ridiculous it is. 7. Don't aim to win, aim to repair. At the end of the day, the question is not, who won this fight? The question is, did our relationship win? If the answer is no, then even if you proved your point, you lost something bigger. 8. End with reassurance. After the storm, always remind each other why you're together in the first place. You can be as simple as, "I'm still mad, but I love you." Or, "I don't like what happened, but I'm not going anywhere." Those small reassurances are like stitching up the wound after the surgery. So here's the thing. Arguments don't have to be battles. They can be conversations. Intense, passionate,
but still safe. And when you follow these rules, every conflict becomes less about destroying and more about building.
So, we've covered the rules of fighting fair. We've seen how arguments can shift from emotional landmines to opportunities for growth. But maybe you're still wondering, what's the bigger picture here? Why does all this matter in the long run?
Here's the truth. The strength of a relationship isn't measured by the absence of conflict. It's measured by how you handle it. Two people who never fight, that usually means two people who avoid real issues. And avoidance is like sweeping glass under the carpet. Sooner or later, someone's going to bleed. But two people who can argue well, argue honestly, argue with respect. That's a couple with resilience. That's a couple that can survive stress, disappointment, and change. Because they've built a muscle that most people don't even think about. The muscle of repair. Think of it like this. Conflict is inevitable. Repair is optional. And the couples who master repair, who learn to argue with love instead of hate, are the ones who make it through the long haul. Now, here's where it gets personal. The next time you feel an argument bubbling up, stop. Ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be close? Because in relationships, those two aren't always the same. When you fight with your partner, remember, this isn't a courtroom. There's no jury, no judge, just two people trying to make sense of each other's emotions. So fight, yes, but fight fair. Shout if you must, but don't wound. Speak your truth, but don't weaponize it. And when it's over, remind each other that the love is still there. Because at the end of the day, a healthy relationship isn't one where you never clash. It's one where, no matter how hard the clash, you always find your way back. Arguments don't destroy love. Silence does. So fight, but fight to stay together. Thanks for staying with me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. Stay strong, stay calm, stay motivated. See you next time.